And I will listen to it. I listen to everything. It's good to be able to listen to everything because it just gives you I think it helps your mind.
You know, it's pulling threads is what I've heard it called, right?
Ask a musician what the most essential component of learning, performing, and loving music is, and they would all effusively discuss the profundity of listening. There simply is no substitute to experiencing a steady stream of great recordings. Want to be a player? You need to have a foundation in the history and style of the music. Want to have a deep relationship with jazz or any other style of music as a fan? Dive into classic albums, both old and new. Just starting your jazz journey? There really is no simpler prescription than to drop the needle and absorb the wide, wide world that is recorded music. In this KCJO JazzWorks video, I sat down with drummer Sam Wiseman and pianist Charles Williams, two of the most well-listened musicians I know. Sam is not only an incredibly versatile drummer, he's an engaging radio presence, hosting Jazz Afternoon on local public radio KKFI 90.1 FM. When I met Sam when we were students at UMKC, he was working at the Marr Sound Archive, and I have no doubt that his musical versatility stems from such an infatuation with recorded music. Charles is one of the most beloved artists I've ever met. His connection to both the audience and the piano is immediately identifiable. He is also extremely versatile, from barrelhouse boogie woogie and Kansas City swing to the arranging and band leading of the music of Motown, contemporary jazz, and beyond. Very rarely will a conversation with Charles go by without him saying, "Oh man, have you listened to this?" or "You really should check this out." To start our series on the importance of listening, I thought that a conversation with these two would be a great start to help you along your path to jazz nirvana, an aspirational destination that can only be achieved through the power of listening.
I don't think a person can go a day without any music in their life.
Yeah.
I believe music is important. And if we don't have it in any of these elements or phases of our life, life would be so boring and so dead. Music, it induces our emotions, you know? And different genres of music, different types. The minors, the majors, they give us different feelings, different dynamics. Because I think music is what helps people listen and look at movies, or helps them with all kinds of aspects of their life. It's therapeutic to listen to music.
I think there's two parts to it. There's how to play your instrument, and so listening is essential to learn how to play your instrument. Listening to the greats, how they played certain tunes or certain styles. And then there's the other part of it, which is how to play in an ensemble. And the recordings are textbook, really, for how to exist in a rhythm section or in a band, what musical ideas are being tossed around a band. And so listening is key for both of those elements of being a musician. I can't think of one album, but I would say that listening to jazz on the radio is what got me into jazz. Just discovering the local jazz station when I was 13 probably, and then just being exposed to a lot of different styles of jazz and different musicians, and just pretty much every night from 13 to I moved to college, I listened to at least an hour of jazz on the radio. At first it was Dick Wright.
Oh, okay.
On KANU on Saturday afternoons, and then Bob Parlocha, and Bob McWilliams, the Bobs, I call them. So Bob McWilliams is still out there and does a great job, played different stuff, and mentioned the personnel and the recordings, which I really liked because as a drummer, that was how I discovered lots of different drummers, and since I listened to those radio programmers that mentioned the personnel, I could find, Philly Joe recordings or Max Roach recordings, and I might not know at the time who Sonny Clark was, but I would know somebody else on the recording.
I think I grew up in the best of times to listen to music. Being born in 55, I think with all the old movies, and see, that's what captured me. I look at the old black and white movies and the Disney movies, and then, I remember even on our local black station, KPRS, they would play Lil Darlin' to sign off at 6 o'clock every night. Count Basie, and that was their sign-off tune. And I loved that song. And then when I got to high school and we played it, I said, this is what comes on the radio. We saw the Ed Sullivan Show. We saw the Beatles, Elvis, Michael Jackson, the Jackson 5, Supremes. We saw all them get their breaks. Listen to all the Motown songs. And then they were still playing Cannonball, Adderley, on the radio in those days. And then, I just even saw the transformation of musical instruments from acoustical into the electronic as that got more popular. The Fender Rhodes, the Wurlitzer piano. And then you hear another sound, so there's something else for you to listen to, so it's exciting. And then, here comes Return to Forever, Chick Corea. And then he's using all these different electronic keyboards. And you're going like, oh man. And then I just can't even think of all the stuff. And then going to the jazz festivals here at the Municipal Auditorium as a teenager, we would spend 10 or 12 hours at Municipal Auditorium all day listening to jazz and see some of the greatest people ever. And actually got to play with some of them. And because our teacher was such good friends with a lot of them. But the whole idea was I was listening and I was learning by just listening to this music. And so I feel like a lot of it has gotten to be a part of my soul.
I think choosing a couple recordings that you already like, that you already are familiar with, and pick one element to focus on, and then listen to it 2 or 3 times in a row. So if we're talking about jazz, you already like So What from Kind of Blue. And if you're a piano player, you already know what's going on with the piano, probably. Now listen to, just focus on the bass for the whole recording. And then listen to it again and just focus on the drums for this pass. And then listen to it again, just kind of stepping back. It's very easy to only focus on our own instrument.
Yeah.
Or if you don't play an instrument and you are a novice listener, there's something that you usually focus on, whether it's the lyrics or the beat, but just pick something else to listen to and just try to focus on that through the whole recording. That's a way I would say you could find a new window into listening to music.
Just make it a habit. With the technology these days, you can tell Alexa to play music. You can tell your phone to play it. You can set the timer to play music in your home, and it can be like an experimental thing. And then you get used to having to hear it every day. Of course, as I was coming up, we didn't have iPads and iPods and all this stuff, so we had tape recorders and 8 tracks. So we had to listen. And this is what I tell my students, and I teach them to listen, and I tell them to listen to different videos on YouTube. I say, have you heard this? Have you heard of Oscar Peterson? Have you heard of Chick Corea? Have you heard of Benny Green? And, then they say, no. And I say, oh, you got to listen to this. And, because listening is an inspirational tool. It helps you to develop your own style.
One of the great things about listening is that, just like with a book or a movie, you can leave this world and go into another one. And you can go as far as your imagination takes you. There's something just otherworldly about listening to a great artist at work, you know, whether it's diving into the symphonies of Beethoven or the nuance of Bill Evans or the soul of Freddie Hubbard, John Coltrane. And there's a special sauce involved in that, as Sam Wiseman said.
I think that there's a feeling. I think there's a feeling, melody, soul has to be there. It can be a bunch of notes and still have that, sure. You know. So, man, is there a way to seek out that thing? I mean, I guess, you know, the musicians that you know, there's a good place to start. If you like a particular bass player or a drummer or somebody, and they're playing with somebody that you don't know, it'll probably be good.
I listen, I say, oh, I like that chord, oh, I like that run. And do you know, I'll slow it down on YouTube and I'll listen to it. Or I might write out every little lick and then I'll learn that lick and then I'll incorporate it. And that's what I tell the students.
I played along to a ton of records, which is something that rhythm section players, I think, do a lot of, especially drummers, particularly drummers.
I say if you listen and you gain a lot of knowledge about what you're listening to and you love it, and you put this and that and you mix it up and you develop your own style.
The blues and soul, and also kind of the legacy.
I think children especially need to be brought up on different types of music so they can help them with the cultural experience as they get older, because if they just listen,
embodies that sort of unexplainable quality in good music.
Listening is so important. Just like listening in class when you're trying to listen to the teacher. You gotta listen to learn something. So you will learn something by listening to jazz music or any type of music.
So once again, thank you for joining us on this Kansas City Jazz Orchestra JazzWorks video. We'll see you on the next one.